Welcome back. I have to be honest with you. When I first looked at the book we're covering today, I was a little skeptical.
Oh, yeah. Which one is this?
We are looking at a text called In Tune with the Infinite by Ralph Waldo Trine. It was written in, get this, 1897.
Wow. Okay.
And my first thought was, what could a guy writing before the invention of the airplane, before the internet, before any of this, possibly teach us about the stress and, the burnout of the modern world?
It does feel like digging up a fossil. I get that.
It really does.
But it's funny you say that because that's exactly why this book is so fascinating. It was a massive bestseller in its day. I mean, it sat on the shelves of people like Henry Ford.
No kidding.
Yeah. And the reason it's still in print and the reason we're talking about it now is because it addresses this specific kind of human exhaustion that hasn't really changed in a century.
That's the part that actually hooked me once I started reading. It's this
Yeah.
universal feeling. I want to start there with this image that I think everyone listening right now will recognize. It's the sensation of being a cork bobbing in the middle of a rough ocean.
Ooh, that is a visceral image.
Yeah. It feels so true, though, doesn't it? You wake up, and before your feet even hit the floor, you check your phone.
Mm-hmm.
You see a headline that makes you angry. Then you see an email from your boss that makes you anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe your partner's in a bad mood, so you get defensive.
And the day hasn't even started.
Not even.
Yeah.
You spend the entire day just being tossed around by these waves. You're just reacting.
Constantly reacting. Trine has a name for that state, actually. He calls it being a creature of circumstances.
A creature of circumstance.
It's that state where the external world is completely dictating your internal reality. You're not really living. You're, being lived by your surroundings.
Exactly. And the promise of this book, and really the mission of our session today, is to see if there's an alternative. Trine proposes that we don't have to be the cork.
We can be the architect.
We can be the architect. Shifting from being a victim of circumstance to being a master of your own reality. And if this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
It's a huge promise, for sure. And today we're focusing on what Trine calls the supreme fact of human life.
That's such a heavy title, The Supreme Fact. It sounds a bit arrogant, honestly.
It does. It seems incredibly grandiose.
Like he solved the entire riddle of the universe in, one chapter.
Right. But when you strip away that Victorian language, he's really talking about the psychology of identity. He's talking about where your personal power comes from and specifically where you choose to place your attention.
So this isn't magic.
Not at all. It's not about magic. It's not about toxic positivity. It's really about the mechanics of how we view ourselves in relation to the world.
Okay, so let's get into it. This supreme fact. What is the core concept that Trine is trying to sell us here? Because he uses some very flowery language about the infinite.
He does. And you have to remember the time he was writing in. Trine was part of what was called the New Thought movement, which was really the grandfather of modern self-help.
Oh, yeah.
So his central thesis is that there's a spirit of infinite life that sits behind all things. He argues that the universe isn't some chaotic random accident, but that it's governed by, immutable laws.
So there's an order to it all.
An order. And he describes this spirit of infinite life as the source of all power, all wisdom, and all peace.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here. To a modern listener, spirit of infinite life sounds a lot like religious dogma. Is he just telling us to go to church?
That's a fair question, and it's a really important distinction. He isn't talking about a distant deity sitting on a cloud judging you.
Right.
He's talking about a force that flows through you.
Mm-hmm.
He uses this beautiful analogy of a golden thread running through history. He says if you look at all the great philosophers, the Stoics in Rome, the mystics in the East, the poets, they all agree on one thing. That there's a source of strength that comes from within, which connects to a larger universal order, whether you call it God or nature or the universe or just, the fundamental laws of physics.
The label doesn't matter.
The label doesn't matter. The idea is that you're not separate from the power that drives the stars. You are part of it.
So if we want to strip the woo-woo paint off of this and look at the engine underneath,
Yeah.
how do we translate oneness with the infinite into something useful for someone staring at a spreadsheet on a Tuesday?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If we look at this through the lens of modern psychology, and we found some great stuff in our research packet on this, Trine is describing what we now call an internal locus of control.
I remember that term from Psych 101, but let's unpack it. Internal locus of control.
Sure. It's a concept that was popularized by Julian Rotter in the 1950s. And simply put, It's the belief that you are responsible for your own reactions and your own state of mind.
Okay.
It's a spectrum, really. On one end, you have an external locus of control.
That's the cork in the ocean.
That is the cork in the ocean, 100%. If you have an external locus, you believe your happiness depends on what happens to you. You know, I'll be happy if my boss is nice today.
Or I'm angry because the traffic is bad.
Exactly. I'm stressed because the economy is down. You're effectively outsourcing your power to things you cannot control.
And the internal locus.
The internal locus is the belief that you have agency. You might not control the traffic, but you absolutely control your reaction to the traffic. Trine is arguing for the ultimate internal locus of control.
So he's taking it a step further.
He's saying that by recognizing your connection to this infinite source, or in secular terms, recognizing your own inherent capacity for reason and regulation, you realize you are never truly powerless. You always have the capacity to choose your response.
It reminds me of that concept of the sovereign self we found in the notes.
Tell me more.
The idea that you aren't just this fragmented, isolated little person struggling for survival, but that you are connected to a much larger reservoir of strength.
And that connection is vital. Trine uses a metaphor that I think is really, really helpful here. He calls it the inflow. He asks us to imagine a lotus pond.
I like this image already. Break it down.
So think of a garden pond. If that pond is fed by a fresh, running stream, the water stays clear. It's vibrant. It supports life.
Okay.
The flowers bloom on the surface because the roots are being fed by fresh water. But what happens if you block the stream? What happens if you, dam up the inflow?
The water stops moving. It gets stagnant, murky. Algae starts to grow. It becomes a mess.
Exactly. Trine argues that this is what we do to ourselves psychologically. We cut off our own inflow of power and clarity.
And what's the dam? What's blocking it?
The thing that acts as the dam, the thing that blocks the fresh water, is fear. It's worry. It is the belief that we are separate and alone.
So when we get into that mindset of it's just me against the world, or I have to fight for every little scrap, we're essentially damming up our own pond.
Precisely. And we know this biologically now, too. It's not just a nice metaphor. When you enter that fight-or-flight mode, that separate self mode, your body releases cortisol.
Right, the stress hormone.
Your vision literally narrows. Your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for creative problem solving, it starts to shut down. You literally become stupider and more rigid.
Wow.
You've cut off the inflow of your own best thinking.
So the supreme fact isn't just a spiritual idea, it's a physiological one. It's realizing that the stream exists, and our job is just to remove the blockage.
That's it. It's about alignment. It's about opening the gate so the water can flow again.
This leads us to a really interesting distinction Trine makes. He basically says there are two ways to live, or two identities we can inhabit. And I think this is where the rubber really meets the road.
Yes, this is the practical part.
Let's look at the first one. Let's call it Identity 1, the separate self.
This is the default state for many of us, unfortunately. The separate self is rooted in scarcity and fear.
So if you identify as the separate self, you feel small. You feel like an isolated fragment.
And because you feel small, the world looks big and scary. If you're separate, then everything else is competition. Resources are limited, respect is limited, safety is limited.
How does that person behave?
They're defensive, they're reactive, they're constantly comparing themselves to others because they feel like for someone else to win, they have to lose.
Trine calls this person the pessimist, right? But he doesn't just mean someone who sees the glass as half empty.
No, it's much deeper than that. He means someone who creates their own negative reality by focusing on what's lacking.
Okay.
In modern psychology, we link this directly to the scarcity mindset. There's some fascinating research by Melanathan and Shafir that we found. They saw that when people feel they lack something, whether it's money or time or even affection, it captures their mind. It just consumes their mental bandwidth.
So you get tunnel vision.
You get complete tunnel vision. You're so focused on the immediate threat or the immediate lack that you make terrible long-term decisions.
Like snapping at your kids because you're worried about an email.
Exactly. You are the stagnant pond.
Okay, that's the separate self, and I think we've all been there. I know I have. But let's flip it. What is Identity 2, the unified self?
This is the goal. This is the identity rooted in calm agency, dignity, and responsibility.
I like that. Calm agency.
Yeah. Trine sometimes uses the term God-man here, which sounds very lofty and a bit archaic to our ears.
Yeah, God-man sounds like a superhero from a 1940s comic book or something.
It really does, but we can translate that to mean a fully realized human.
Yeah.
This is someone who acts from a center of peace. They have what Trine calls inner authority.
I love that phrase, inner authority. What does that look like in a person? How would I recognize them?
It looks like steady goodwill. It's not that they're pushovers. It's not that they don't have boundaries, but they lack that background hum of anxiety that most of us carry around. Because they believe they're connected to that infinite source, or because they just trust in their own resilience, they don't feel the need to defend their ego at every single turn.
This connects directly to the Stoic concept of the inner citadel, doesn't it? I saw some references to Marcus Aurelius in the notes.
It is the exact same idea. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. He had absolute power, but he was dealing with wars, plagues, political betrayals, unimaginable stress.
Right.
And he wrote to himself in his journals about the need to retreat into his own inner citadel.
A fortress inside the mind.
Precisely. He realized that the war, the fame, the insults, those were all external storms. He couldn't control them, but he could control the fortress of his own mind.
That is the unified self.
It's the place that external events cannot touch unless you let them.
But that is the trap, isn't it? We do let them touch us. We make this huge mistake of outsourcing our life.
We outsource our well-being constantly. We say, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, or I'm angry because he was rude to me. We are literally handing the keys to our emotional state to random people and events.
Trine has a very specific warning about this. He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's one of my favorite lines in the book, "He who does not condition circumstances allows the process to be reversed and becomes a conditioned circumstance."
It's a brilliant line. So powerful. Think about that. Becoming a conditioned circumstance. It means you just become a product of your environment.
Give me a real-world example of that.
Okay, imagine walking into a meeting where everyone is panicked. Tension is high. People are snapping at each other.
Been there.
Right. If you are a conditioned circumstance, you immediately absorb that panic. You start feeling tight in your chest. You start snapping back. You have allowed the room to dictate who you are in that moment.
So you're a thermometer, just reflecting the temperature of the room.
Exactly. But Trine wants you to be the thermostat.
To set the temperature.
He wants you to set the temperature. If you walk into that same room as the unified self, you bring your own calm. You condition the circumstance.
He uses the word slave
Yeah.
to describe the person who doesn't do this. He says, if you're reacting to everything, you're a slave. That is some harsh language.
It is harsh, but is it wrong? If your mood is entirely dependent on whether it rains or whether the stock market is up or whether someone liked your post on social media, are you free?
Not really.
Or are you a slave to the physical world? You're reacting to the shadows on the wall rather than mastering your own interior world.
Okay, I am sold on the philosophy. Nobody wants to be the slave or the cork. We want to be the architect.
Right.
But here's where I always get stuck with these old books. They tell you what to be, but they don't always tell you how.
The how is everything.
Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
how do we actually do this? How do I stop freaking out when the pressure is on?
This brings us to the method, and interestingly, Trine's advice aligns perfectly with some very modern behavioral science. We're calling it identity-based living.
Identity-based living. Break that down for me.
The core idea is that real change starts with identity, not with outcome. We found some fascinating connections in the research to James Clear and his work on atomic habits.
Well, great book. I've read that. He talks about the layers of behavior change.
Exactly. Most people try to change by focusing on the result. They say, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to get this project done. That's outcome-based.
Right.
But Trine and modern researchers like Claire argue that the true power comes from asserting a new identity first. So instead of asking, what do I want to get, you ask, who do I want to be?
Because if you just focus on the outcome, you're constantly relying on willpower. And willpower is a finite resource.
It's like a battery. It runs out. But identity is like a generator. It creates its own energy.
Let's walk through some examples of how this plays out in real life, because I think that's where it really clicks for people. Let's use the work example from our outline. A high-stress meeting.
Okay. Set the scene. You're walking into a boardroom. Maybe there are budget cuts happening. Maybe you have to present some bad news.
My palms are sweaty. My heart is racing. The old identity, the separate self, is thinking, I need to survive this. I hope they don't yell at me. I hope I don't look stupid.
Look at the focus there. It's all fear-based, all self-preservation. That thought process makes you powerless. You're vibrating with anxiety.
So I'll probably speak too fast
Yeah.
or stay silent when I should speak.
Or get defensive if someone questions you. You are the cork in the ocean.
Okay, now let's apply the supreme fact.
Right.
I stop before I open the door, I take a breath, and I reset my identity. I tell myself, I am a source of clarity and calm.
That's the unified self. You are claiming a higher identity. Now, when you walk in, your goal isn't make them like me. Your goal is express clarity.
How does that actually change my behavior in the room?
It changes everything. If your identity is source of clarity, you listen better. You're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You aren't taking the anger in the room personally because you know you're there to provide clarity, not to defend your ego.
So I'd speak less.
You'd speak less, but your words would have more weight. And often, simply by holding that frequency of calm, you can change the energy of the whole room. You've conditioned the circumstance.
I really like that. It takes the pressure off of winning the meeting and puts the focus on being the person you actually want to be.
Exactly.
Let's do a relationship example. This is a big one. Conflict with a partner or a family member.
Oh yeah, this is where the separate self does the most damage. The old identity in an argument is usually, I need to defend myself against this attack, they're wrong, I'm right, and I'm gonna prove it.
Which always, 100% of the time, leads to a bigger fight.
Always. It's just two egos smashing against each other.
Yeah.
But let's apply Trine's concept. What if you shift your identity to, I'm a person of steady goodwill?
Steady goodwill. That's such a strong phrase. It sounds almost formal, but it's really powerful.
It implies that your care for the person is bigger than this particular disagreement. If you enter the conversation as a person of steady goodwill, you can listen to their anger without taking it personally.
You can see past the attack.
You can realize, oh, they are hurting. Instead of just, they are attacking me, you can de-escalate the fight. You act from your center, not from your trigger.
It's the difference between reacting to their tone and responding to their need.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay, one more example. Habits. This one comes from the research packet, specifically about diet and health.
Yes, the story of the person who switched their identity regarding food. The old identity says, I am trying to force myself to lose weight. That's scarcity. It's a struggle of willpower against desire. I want the donut, but I can't have it.
And eventually you have a bad day and you eat the donut.
Of course you do. But the new identity was, I am a healthy person who respects my body, or, as the example in the notes said, I eat for fuel, not just for entertainment.
So when they're offered a donut versus an apple, it's not even a debate anymore.
It's not a struggle. It's simply, what does someone like me do? Well, someone like me chooses the fuel. It becomes a natural expression of who you are rather than a forced restriction.
It's the difference between saying, I can't eat that, and I don't eat that.
Exactly. I can't is a restriction. I don't is an identity.
This is really powerful stuff. But I want to make it super practical for the listener right now. We designed a guided exercise based on Trine's principles and these modern techniques. We're calling it the Inner Authority Reset.
This is a tool you can use whenever you feel that cork in the ocean sensation. It's just 5 quick steps. You can do this in a journal or even just in your head before you step into a stressful situation.
Okay, let's walk through it. Step 1. Name one area where you feel small or powerless right now.
And be specific here. Just identify it. Is it your finances? Is it a difficult relationship with a coworker? Your health? Don't judge it. Just name the area where you feel that separate self taking over.
Step 2. Name the story you keep repeating about yourself in that area.
This requires a bit of honesty. We all tell ourselves stories. Are you telling yourself, I'm just not good with money, or I'm always the one who gets walked over?
Or I'll never get in shape.
Exactly. These are the narratives of the stagnant pond. You have to hear the story clearly before you can even think about changing it.
Step 3. Choose one higher identity statement.
So look at that list of qualities Trine talks about. Dignity, calm, integrity, goodwill, wisdom. Choose one that acts as the antidote to your fear. If you feel frantic, choose I am a person of calm. If you feel victimized, choose I am a person of dignity.
Step 4. Choose one small outward action that expresses this identity today.
This is so crucial. You cannot just think your way into a new way of acting. You have to act your way into a new way of thinking. Identity is built through evidence. You have to prove it to yourself.
So give me a concrete example of that.
Well, if your new identity is goodwill, maybe you send a kind text to that difficult person, not because they deserve it, but because you are a person of goodwill.
Okay.
If your identity is dignity, maybe you just dress a little sharper for your next Zoom call. It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be true to the identity.
And finally, step 5. Remove one contradiction.
I love this one. This is the subtraction method. Identify one habit, one speech pattern, or one reaction that breaks your unity. Maybe it's complaining to your spouse about your boss every single night.
The power leak.
It's a huge power leak. If your identity is inner authority, complaining undermines that completely, so you just stop doing it. You seal the leak.
I really like that last step. It's not just about adding new things, it's about stopping the things that drain your power.
Trine is very big on avoiding what he calls dissipation. We leak power whenever our actions don't match our intentions.
Speaking of leaking power, let's talk about the common mistakes people make when they try to live this way. Because it sounds simple, but we trip up. We're human.
We do. There are 5 common traps. The first big mistake is waiting for the feeling.
Oh yeah, I'll act confident when I feel confident.
Yeah.
Or I'll be calm when things calm down.
Exactly, and it's a completely backward. Behavioral activation therapy, a modern psychological treatment, tells us that action precedes feeling. You have to act the part of the unified self before you feel it.
So you have to step into the role.
The feeling of confidence is the reward for the action, not the prerequisite. You aren't faking it, you're practicing it. You're rehearsing the truth of who you can be.
Okay, mistake number 2. Ignoring intuition.
Trine emphasizes this inner voice. He argues that when we're in tune, we get these little nudges, quiet impulses. But the separate self is loud. It's logical and fearful. It screams, no, that doesn't make sense. Look at the data.
So we talk ourselves out of it.
We talk ourselves out of it. And when you ignore your gut, you create internal division. So the fix is to trust that first quiet nudge, even if it feels a little risky.
Mistake number 3. Talking too much. Trine calls this dissipation.
This is a classic wisdom teaching. There's an old proverb about scattering feathers in the wind. Once they're gone, you can't get them back. Trine warns that talking about your plans, your new identity, your big goals, it scatters the energy you need to actually do them.
So if I decide to become a person of health, I shouldn't post about it on Facebook right away.
Probably not. Practice silence. Keep your new identity a secret between you and yourself until it's strong enough to stand on its own. Let your results speak for you.
Interesting. Okay. Mistake number 4. Dwelling on the negative. Ruminating.
This is an attention control issue. Trine says, we build whatever we find within us. If you spend your entire drive home replaying an argument or visualizing the worst-case scenario, you are literally building that reality in your neural pathways.
You're just reinforcing the stress.
You're practicing being stressed. The fix is to gently redirect. Gently is the key word. Don't beat yourself up. Just notice you're ruminating and pivot your attention to the solution or back to your higher identity.
And the last one, mistake number 5, thinking it happens overnight.
We are so impatient. We want the one epiphany to fix us forever. But neuroplasticity, the actual rewiring of the brain, it requires repetition. This is a practice, like building a muscle.
You're going to fall off the wagon.
You will become the cork again. That's okay. The goal isn't perfection. It's just to reset faster each time.
It's the repetition that matters.
Real change happens in the thousands of small choices we make every day, not in one big, dramatic moment.
This has been such a rich discussion. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, from 19th century mysticism all the way to modern neuroscience. Let's try and recap the main takeaways for everyone listening.
Sure. Let's distill this down into a few key points.
Okay, first, the supreme fact is your connection to the source of life. You are not an isolated fragment.
And next, you are an architect, not a victim of circumstance.
Third, it's about recognizing the difference. The separate self lives in fear. The unified self lives in agency.
And a big one, stop outsourcing your peace to external events.
Choose your identity first, then let your actions follow from that choice.
And use that inner authority reset when you feel stuck.
And finally, trust the process and keep your attention on the higher reality you're building.
It really is a complete shift in how you view the world. Instead of fighting the waves, you learn to navigate the ship.
And you realize the ship is much stronger than you thought. Before we go, I want to leave everyone with something to think about for next time. We've talked a lot about the mind and the spirit today, but Trine believes this connection has a profound effect on the physical body as well.
Oh, he definitely does. In our next session, we're going to explore fullness of life, bodily health, and vigor. We're going to look at how these mental states, fear, worry, or calm, actually physically change the body and how our energy translates into our health.
It gets into some very interesting ideas about psychosomatic health that were way ahead of their time. It's going to be a great follow-up.
It will be.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.